Hello, everybody, and welcome to another dose of virtual vitamin Z. My name is Brad. I'm an education specialist for the Detroit Zoological Society. And today you can see we are back at the barn. That's right. This is another one in a series of many segments that I call Brad at the Barn. In these series, we like to take a closer look at the animals who call the barn home at the Detroit Zoo. Learn a little bit more about them, hear their unique stories, and learn a little bit about how intelligent these farm animals are. And I cannot believe we haven't spoken about these two individuals yet. In the series, I was looking back at all the animals I've covered, and I have not talked about these two. So before we see who we're going to be learning about today in the barn, let's go over some of the vocabulary words and some of the skills that we're going to be working on today. So vocabulary words. First one is cognition, which if you watch some of my other segments, you know I always like to talk about cognition. And the other word is thoroughbred. And the skills and concepts we're going to be working on today are humane education, empathy, and reverence. So that first word, cognition, I've talked about it before. It's our ability to create thoughts and memories using our experiences, our senses, and the information we take in, right? So it's this ability to create complex ideas, right, from all the different information we take in. And the other word is thoroughbred, and you've maybe heard this word before. Sometimes we use the word thoroughbred to describe a purebred horse, but in reality, thoroughbred is an actual breed. Just like there's different breeds of dogs, there's American bulldogs, there's thoroughbred horses. And thoroughbred horses are very well known for being race horses specifically. And if you actually trace back all thoroughbreds, you can trace them back to just 3 stallions that were imported into England in the 17th and 18th century. Pretty wild, right? That's wild. All those horses originated from those 3 stallions, but that's thoroughbred. It is a specific breed of horses that are used for racing. So if you haven't guessed yet who we are learning about today in the barn, based on that last slide, it is the thoroughbred horses that live at the Detroit Zoo. We have 2 thoroughbred horses that call the Detroit Zoo home. This guy right here is Buster. Buster is the darker of the 2. He was born in 2004, so he's 16 years old, and he's a thoroughbred horse. And then he shares this habitat with Trio. Here's Trio right here. Trio's a little bit older. He's in his early to mid 20s. And you can tell them 2 apart because Buster's that darker color, and then Trio is more of like a chestnut with that white on his nose. So these 2 have a really interesting story of how they found their way to the Detroit Zoo. So they are both ex-race horses. So they're both thoroughbred horses. Remember, we talked about how a lot of times those are used for racing. But the unfortunate thing about race horses is a lot of times people breed them and have them so that they can earn money off of them, right? And then when they no longer are profitable, there isn't really a plan for them. And a lot of times they're given away, or in worse situations, they're actually euthanized. So both of these 2 are old racehorses. They're retired racehorses. So Trio right here actually ran over 74 races throughout his lifetime. He even raced at Churchill Downs. And then Buster, unfortunately, had a leg injury. He only raced 4 races before he was injured and then was given up. So they both were racehorses who could no longer race, and then they were given away. But fortunately, there's an organization called CANTOR, and that is an acronym. It stands for the Communication Alliance Network for Thoroughbred Ex-Racehorses. It's a mouthful, CANTOR. And CANTOR helps find homes for these retired racehorses. So, it's really cool that we were able to take both Buster and Trio and give them a home here. And now you can see they get to live out their lives, happy retired racehorses, grazing on grass, hanging out with each other, eating Timothy hay, just enjoying their lives, right? So they're no longer ridden. They get to just kind of live their horse lives here at the zoo. Some interesting things about these 2. So if you come to the zoo and see them, Trio's a little bit more bold and outgoing. So he might be the kind of the first to investigate some things that are happening. They are not related. I mean, technically, right, if we trace them all the way back, they had the 3 stallions back in the 17th century, but they're not really related, but they are friends. They get along well together. Like I said, Trio's a little bit older, but now they get to just hang out with each other, graze, and enjoy that nice retired life. And they're even halter trained, which is kind of a way of saying they can be walked around. So similar to how we may have dogs that we can walk, or even cats that we can walk. These guys get to go on walks in the zoo. You won't see them out walking in the zoo while you are here. They are either walking before or after hours, but they get some nice exercise. So that's a little bit about Buster and Trio, and that's amazing. It's really, really great that we were able to provide a home for them and they could find sanctuary here after their racing days. But what I always like to talk about is cognition, right? So I know there's a lot of misconceptions around horses that maybe they're not intelligent, or that they're just working animals. Maybe you've heard that word before, right? That they're just kind of they're more for humans to use, whether it's racing, on a farm, things like that. But that's not true, right? I mean, horses are these amazing animals. You look in their eyes and you see there's so much more to them. They're intelligent, they're sociable, and they have personalities. They are all unique individuals. And we're going to talk about that today. So this first study we're going to talk about is about making choices and choosing preferences. And this is really, really cool. So horses can't talk to us, right? We don't speak horse. Horses have different languages. But we were able to communicate with horses in this one study. So there was 3 different boards and a different image painted on each board. If the horse selected a board with a specific image, that would mean take the blanket off. There was another board that had nothing on it that says no change. And there is another board that has a different image, which means put the blanket on. So the horses were able to learn these different signs and what they mean. And eventually, the study happened. This was in Norway, I believe. So 24 horses. Some of them had blankets on, and some of them had blankets off. And on a cold day, all of the horses that didn't have blankets on selected the sign that meant put a blanket on. So if they select that sign with their nose, they get to put a blanket on. Vice versa, on a really hot day, half the horses had blankets on, half of the horses did not have blankets on, and all the horses that had their blankets on selected to take the blanket off. And then no change, right? So if they were wearing their blanket on a cold day, they didn't select a change, or if they already had their blanket off on a hot day, they would select no change. And this might not sound like much, but this is really cool, right? This is a way for horses to actually communicate with people, and for horses to understand, like, oh, I know that if I select this person is going to help meet my needs, right? And that's amazing, right? I'm sure there's so many times if you have a companion animal at home and your dog or your cat's making noises, they're whining or they're meowing, and you're like, I wish I knew what you wanted. I wish we could talk. I don't know what you want. Do you want food? Do you want to play? This is really cool. This is the first step in understanding how horses can understand communication and can understand how to ask people for certain things, right? That's pretty cool. And then this one is also really interesting. So this study was in 2015 in Japan, and they actually found that horses can recognize different shapes and sizes. We've talked about executive functions in some of the other Brad at the Barn series. So the executive function is the idea of I can learn a game, I can learn the rules of this game, and I can work in my mind to set forth to meet this goal, right? So in this example, this horse, every time that horse selects the letter S, he gets a carrot, right? And that's a form of intelligence, of this cognition. The ability to say, okay, well, if I want carrots, I know I need to select S and I'll get a carrot. And this might not seem like much, but this is a way that researchers can determine intelligence of animals. And not only can they differentiate different shapes or different letters, so an S and an X, in this same study, they could even differentiate different sizes, right? So, okay, we see that this horse can recognize a circle from an X, but they can also recognize different sizes. And he's doing it pretty quickly too, right? Pretty impressive. I know you might be thinking, okay, Brad, I can do that too, right? For sure, we can do that too, but this is a good start to understand how intelligent horses are. And you can see, look at that score, 12 out of 12, 100%, that horse passed with flying colors. That's amazing. So in that study where they're picking out different shapes or different sizes, they found that horses were able to perform that task as well as monkeys and college students. And again, like I said, you might be like, oh yeah, okay, Brad, that's fine, but I could do that too. For sure, but that still is really impressive because we didn't know that horses could differentiate shapes, right? Or even that they could differentiate different sizes. And we also can't communicate to them what the rules of the game are, right? I could tell you, if you pick the bigger circle, you'll get a treat. But we can't say that to the horse. So it's pretty amazing that they can just figure that out on their own and then apply that in the situation. So I always like to end these segments right with how we can help people, animals, and the planet. So one thing we can do is we can support humane horse racing initiatives, reforms, and policies, right? A lot of racehorses end up in situations like Buster and Trio, but they're not all fortunate enough to find a home at the end of their racing lives. So we can work towards pushing policies or supporting different groups that are working towards these reforms to help make horse racing more humane for the animals who are participating in it. And then we can also consider volunteering for organizations like Canter. So there's a Canter chapter here in Michigan, and they are completely volunteer run. So you can always visit their website to look for volunteer opportunities, especially if you are possibly interested in a future career as a zookeeper or a veterinarian. This might be a really great opportunity to get some firsthand experience. Thank you guys so much. I hope you learned some fun information about Buster and Trio. I had to go out there and apologize to them that I had taken this long to talk about them. You can always see Buster and Trio out there either in the south or north yard. They have those two different yards they can move between. So you can always walk over there and say hi to them while they enjoy their nice life in retirement. For more virtual vitamin Z, you can always visit our website at detroitzoo.org. Otherwise, I will see you all at the barn. Bye, everybody.